Yeah, more than a chance.
So we are concluding the Prakim section between Sha'ar Gimel and Sha'ar Dalid of the Nefesh HaHaim. We're in chapter 8. And as we said in this section of the Sefer, the author of Chaim Volozhin is turning directly to the reader. And I picture the reader here as a young man, a yeshiva bacher, maybe he's an avreich, and you have the Hasidic movement rising in the background and influencing people, and he's trying to protect these people from getting confused or misled. And so he's now going to, at length, lay out a stratagem of the Yetzer Hara, that this is how the Yetzer Hara is going to try to fool you. And I'm telling you, don't be fooled. Od achat yuchal lefatotcha v'chavilot ra'ayot shetachlit avodas adam hu rak lehasig yiras haroimemus. So here comes another strategy of the Yetzer Hara to seduce you. He's going to bring a real lot of proofs that the whole essence, the objective of serving Hashem is to arrive at what's called Yiras Haromimus, which will say that there's two, primary movers in religious thought. One is Avas Hashem, and one is Yiras Hashem. And in Yiras Hashem, there's a breakdown between Yiras HaOynish and Yiras HaRoimemus. Yiras HaOynish is fear of punishment, and that's called Yira Tachtoina. That's like low. That's for simpletons. That's for, even a child knows that I don't want to do bad things because I'll get punished if I do, which is an important fear. People need fear to keep them in line. And, Chazal say, you got to pray for the welfare of the state, because without the state and fear of punishment, people would grossly misbehave. They'd swallow each other alive. So fear of punishment is a very important thing, both in social and in religious life. But there's something much higher and greater, which is called Yiras HaRoimemus, which is an appreciation and awe of how great God is. And where love is predicated on oneness and clinging, Yiras HaRomimus is, I'm taken aback by God's greatness, and I am sort of almost frozen. I am motivated to be my best self and to be on my best behavior and not allow myself to ever indulge in wrongdoing. Because when I think about how great God is and how lowly I am, so that Yiras HaRomimus is a very important religious motivation. And so now the Nefesh HaHaim is saying that the Yetzer is going to trick you and say that that's like the only legitimate motivation for Avodas HaAdam, meaning Avodas Hashem. V'rak al zeh yu'einav v'libo kol hayamim, and that's all you should work on. V'sheyiras ha'oynesh ubusha mibnei adam, and therefore fear of punishment or shame from other people is a mida gerua shebegaruot v'aroi l'sharesh ota milibcha. And it's very unbecoming. It's very bad midah to be embarrassed of other people, to be shamed by other people. You have to free yourself from any sensitivity to what other people think about you. And I want to give some examples of this. There was a movement, and this is a Litvisha movement, the Musar movement, where they would sometimes do stuff to make themselves look stupid. And it's a famous story about the Navardic yeshiva. And the Navardic yeshiva, this is a Musar yeshiva, and they would go into the hardware store and ask if they had milk. And they'd go into the grocery store and ask if they sold nails. Meaning they'd make themselves look stupid purposefully in order to bring down, I guess, their gaiva, their arrogance, their conceitedness, So in order to humble themselves to the nth degree, they would make themselves look foolish and sort of, I would even say, socially inept, like idiots. And it's not something that I espouse, certainly. But this is historical fact that this was like something they would do. And we do have the Shulchan Aruch saying that if you want to do a mitzvah, don't be dissuaded from doing the mitzvah because other people will laugh at you. That is, the Torah brings that idea that you have to be az kanemer. Sometimes you have to be brave and don't worry about other people going to laugh at you or say he's such a frummy, he's eating shalashudas, you don't really need to eat shalashudas. Whatever a mitzvah that you're makbid and other people aren't makbid, he doesn't want to speak lashon hara, Mr. Tzaddik over here. So a person has to be ready to buck sometimes the disapproval of others. But here, again, this is all Eitzes HaYetzer. We're talking about the way the Yetzer Hara is going to fool these people. The Yetzer Hara is going to tell them that only Yiras HaRomamus is important, and Yiras HaOnesh, fear of punishment, or shame from other people, is itself a totally unworthy concern, and it's the worst of the things, and you should totally uproot it from your heart. Okay? Now, what that's going to do is it's going to set you free from social conventions. If you could walk out in the middle of the street, I don't know, wearing something ridiculous, wearing a clown's outfit. Okay, so maybe on Purim you could do it. But on any given day, walk out onto the street wearing a tutu, a ballerina's outfit, right? Something totally ridiculous. So you have to thumb your nose at society to be able to do something deviant like that. And he's concerned that the Yetzer Hara is going to convince you that there's some sort of mitzvah of bucking society and behaving with deviance, of totally uprooting shame from other people, totally out of your heart. Okay, that's what he said so far. That the Yetzer Hara is going to trick you into totally focusing on Yiras HaRomamus and getting Yiras HaOnesh and Busha Mipnei Adam totally off your heart. V'yaniach lecha yitzrecha, and your Yetzer Hara will leave for you lahoisif yira al yira. It'll let you grow greatly in yira, biyiras haroimimus, ad sheyikba belibcha, sheyiras haoinesh ve'abushim ibnei adam hi aveira. Okay, this guy has gotten so confused that he now thinks that having fear of punishment from God, or recounting, stepping back because of what will people say, having any sense of shame in front of other people, is an aveira. Okay, that's a transgression. And you will flee from that to the greatest degree as if it were totally sinful. שתלכד ברשתו, שלא להפרושי מאיסורה, בזמן שאין לך yiras haroimimus karaoi. I just think there's so many stories like this in real life, where you have like a Baal Tshuva. I'm thinking of like a Chabadnik in Brooklyn or something, but this could happen anywhere to any religious person who gets confused like this, and he thinks he's a really holy person on a really high madrega, and he's gotten this really wrong idea, but this idea that, you don't have to listen to what other people are saying because they don't really understand, and only I really am this really from guy, and I should only follow the thinking of Yiras Haromamus, of acting before God. And then he finds himself in a compromising situation. Okay, just for argument's sake, we'll put him back with his old girlfriend. Okay, and now he thinks, well, he really shouldn't walk down the street with her because what will people say? And then he says to himself, no. What people will say, I shouldn't worry about that. So I can walk down the street with her. And I really shouldn't go into this yichud situation with her because what will people say? No, but what people say, that's the wrong thing to think. So I could have yichud with her. and so on and so forth, until he finds himself this really frum guy who's totally motivated about Yiras Haramumus, and he finds himself that he's over Averos Chamuros because he's confused himself with his great holiness. Okay, Shimon?
But where's the Havamina? It's undermining the concept of Marat Ayin. It's as if it doesn't come into his calculus there, which is odd.
You're right, but like I mentioned, the guys in the Vardik that were trying to make themselves look stupid, right? And the Hasidim also. Remember, the founding of the Hasidic movement was a rebellion, and they were dressing differently and behaving differently and davening differently, knowing that they looked like fools maybe in other people's eyes, but we're going to dance and sing and be loud and boisterous in the service of God, and we don't care what anybody else says. And if you care what anybody else says about you, then you don't really get it. Then you're not really on the level. So you have to totally disregard what other people say and think about you. Only then can you get to Shleimus Avoida. Okay, so that's where I think this comes from. It doesn't come from a correct halachic analysis of behavior, right? And that's what he's saying. Stick to the rules, follow the Shulchan Aruch. Don't make yourself complicated in this crazy calculus. But he's trying to warn people from something that he saw. This is something that he encountered, that people are getting confused here. They're embracing Yiras Roimemus, and they are pushing off Yiras Oynesh and the Busha Mibnei Adam, and it's leading them astray and getting them in big trouble. So that's what he's talking about. So he continues, Vayekal lecha kol davar basher yir'elecha panim panim shonim bezeh. And the Yetzer Hara, he's a trickster. He shows you why this is really permitted and it's really a mitzvah what you're doing. But yuchal lihivaled mizeh, and it gets to the point. She'im yochichacha adam, a person tells you you're misbehaving. V'yar elecha she'ata oiver al ezedin, you're in violation. You can't do that. Yashiach halibcha, your heart, your confused heart. Shelo lafrushe mizeh. Kol zman sheyiras hamochiach al panecha. So this sort of crazy concoction that you cooked up says, well, I shouldn't refrain from doing this just because so and so says so. That's not a good reason for me to stop doing what I'm doing. So I'm going to keep doing it, even though he says it's wrong and I really know it's wrong. But I don't want to stop doing it just because he said so. So therefore, I'm going to continue. Okay, I mean, it's totally warped. But again, he's talking about a reality that he knew. Because he says, if I stop doing it because this guy told me not to do it, then I'm really stopping because of what people say. And that's not a good religious motivation. I should only stop when I have fear of Hashem, of Yiras Haraimus. And this is Yira Chitzoinis. Okay? So again, it's this crazy calculus that's leading him astray. And the Nefesh HaHaim is now going to sort of, prove and emphasize how misguided it is. Kvar horunu chazal, a Gemara in Brachas, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, the Talmidov, shetem moira shamayim aleichem, k'moira basavadam. How much Yiras Hashem should you have? As much as you fear people. People don't do Aveiras generally in front of other people because they're embarrassed. You don't like to show your worst in front of other people. So you're not going to shoplift in a grocery store when other people are watching you. So if you will have that same degree of fear of God, like you have fear of other people, that'll already be quite an accomplishment. That's what Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai told his Talmidim. Milanu gadol v'chasi Rav Amram. Rav Amram Chasida. There's a Gemara in Kiddushin that Rav Amram Chasida was, I think he was a great man. He once fell into sort of a trap of his Yetzer Hara, and he was in danger of having an illicit liaison with a young woman. And he's on his way to be beyichud with her, and he gets control of himself. And he knows that he's in great danger, And so he screams, Nura be Amram, Nura be Amram. There's a fire at Amram's house. And everybody comes running with buckets to put out the fire. And they're like, where's the fire? He says, oh, I meant an internal fire. I was out of control. My Yetzer Hara was burning me. So it was very shameful. You know, people like, oh, you jerk. Why did you get me out of bed to put out a fire? That was your Yetzer Hara. But he suffered that busha in order to overcome his Yetzer. And the Gemara tells the whole story in order to teach us, you know, sort of a tactic, and that a person has to forego his honor in order to avoid falling into the trap of sin. So that's the story of Rav Amram Chasida. Im kol zeh k'shnizdamin liyodo pam achas dvar aveira. He was once in the clutches of sin. Pitom ratzaloi mekamuva b'shili kiddushin rachman litzan kemuva at the end of the Gemara. Nilcham b'tachbulot. He used creative strategies and tactics. Lihinatzel mi reshet yitzro. Af machmas habusha mi habriois. And he used his shame in front of other people. Why couldn't he have just said to himself, you know, God sees what I'm doing, and this is a terrible thing, I should stop myself. But he couldn't. That's human nature. Once the Yetzer Hara is burning within you, even though you know that God can see it, that is not enough to stop you. You need people. You need shame from other people, and that will stop you. And Rav Amram Chasida knew that, and so he was willing to make himself look foolish, and he brought these people to put out the fire because he knew Yiras Hashem wasn't going to do it. Rak shelo lavor chas v'shalom al mitzvahs bayro yizbarach shmo. V'nira hagam shekodesh baruch hu. Generally, HaKadosh Baruch Hu chas al kvoidem shel tzadikim. God cares about the honor of the righteous. Im kol zeh kav'u alahai uvda b'talmud. Lamaisa, we have this in our Gemara, telling a story about this great rabbi that he made a fool of himself when he called people to stop him from having this liaison with the young lady. Lahoiros lanu darkei Hashem hayusharim. To teach us that this is a legitimate tactic. If you need to use it to stop yourself from sinning, then use it. You're not less than Rav Amram Chasida. I've shown you some of the ways of the Yetzer, the way he hides with creative strategies, like Chazal Semer B'Yitzchak Yitzro Shel Adam Mischadei Shalav B'Kol Yom. Your Yetzer is always coming up with new ideas, how to trip you up. Rak Ra Kol Hayom. Shelo Dailo Shemizgaber B'Tachbuloisav. She's Nakil Al Adam Mitmol Shel Shom. It's not enough that the Yetzer has been doing things yesterday and the day before. Every day has new tricks, new stuff. Every day it's new. And the Yetzer Hara, you know, acts as, I'm not saying to do something bad, I'm saying to do something good. So he's tricking you. Ve'adarabba, mar ele adam shekol ma shelamed Torah o po'al mitzvah adayin lo haya behem shum toiv. And this is what Reb Daniel said at the beginning, that the Yetzer Hara could trick you and say, everything you've done till now in your life, you haven't really done anything. So you have to start from now because it's all worthless, everything you've done. And that of course is not true. What you've done and what you do, even if it's tainted, is still wonderful and great, and no good is ever lost. This is the Yetzer talking, say it's no good. He gets you depressed, and he brings Yeush and tells you, anyway, you're worthless and you're full of Averas, so what's the difference if you do a few more? This Russia that is looking at the tzaddik and trying to kill him, that's imagery associated with the Yetzer Hara. Hu Yetzer Hara, hu malach hamavis, male einayim, full of eyes, v'tzoyfe lirois hanoilad, b'mala hachshil, is all the time calculating, how can I bring a person down? Ki inyan sfia, while davar shasi liot achar kach ad asher hadam lo yedali zoyer od, until he gets you to lower your defenses and he swallows you up in his plans. Ve'ata hakoire. So now I, the Nefesh HaChaim, turn to you, the reader, and I say, Al tidameh shem Milibi hotzeti advarim. Don't think that I came up with this on my own from my heart. Ki et kol zot bechanti v'nasiti. I've tested all this. I've tried all this. Kasher natati libi lidrosh velatur. That's quoting Shlomo Melech in Koheles. That I've spent my life investigating. The Einai Ro Rabim Asher Yechpatzu Kirbat Elokim. I've seen a lot of people are trying to get close to God. V'nichshalim. They are faltering. V'mo Eile Advarim. But they are getting misled. So again, this is a response to what he sees in his time. And I've talked to them. I'm a Rosh Hashiva. And I talk to the young men and they tell me what they're thinking. And I hear these types of mistakes. So that's why I'm trying to share this with you and keep you from falling into these same mistakes. So now he tells a story that happened to him. It happened to me once that I saw with my own eyes. Ezo anashim שהורגלו בזה זמן כביר עד שכמעט נשכח מהם זמן תפילת המנחה שקבעו לנו רז"ל. So this is a famous, sort of machlokes between Litvaks and Hasidim. Until when can you daven mincha? So of course, the Vilna Gaon particularly was makbi to daven mincha before the Shkia. Shkia is like end of the day, according to the Vilna Gaon. And that wasn't so by the Hasidim. And of course, there's the machlokes Rabbeinu Tam and so forth. But the Nefesh HaHaim here is focusing on the fact that you got to daven mincha by Shkia. But these Hasidim and these youngsters who have been confused, they think you got to wait for 3 stars to come out to daven mincha. Okay, so they're totally confused. Adarabba nikba b'libam mirova hergel kemodin ve'halacha shetfilas hamincha ikara achar tzeis kochavim. They think mincha is supposed to be after the stars come out. The kishadam omer lechavero nispalel tfilas mincha. Let's go daven mincha. The other guy says, umeshivo nir'eh v'na'ayen im kvar nira koichavim barakia. We got to go see if 3 stars have come out if we want to daven mincha. So they're totally lost. Hashem yislach lahem v'yichaper lo shoige upesi. Hashem should forgive their foolishness that they've lost their way. Aval libcha tashis ledas chachamim balei Torah asher kvar horunu chazal she'ikar hi asiyas hamitzvah bizmana. Don't lose this ironclad rule. The main thing in serving God is doing the mitzvahs at the right time according to all the rules and regulations. B'chol pratea v'dikdukea chok v'lo yavor. B'taras hamachshava, the purity of intent. Toiva titzaref lemaisa. That's nice to have, but it's not must have. The must have is do the mitzvahs right and on time. Az telech lebetach. If you do the mitzvahs right and on time, according to all the halachas, that will help you have purity of heart and intent, and then you'll have something beautiful and powerful. Umishnah meforeshes shanu. We have a mishnah called Shemaisa merubim mechokmaso. If your deeds are greater than your wisdom, afgam chokmaso miskayemis bikdusha v'tahara v'dvekus. So doing good things will help your wisdom to flourish, and you'll have kedusha tahara v'dvekus. Umi zutarhu mashim shilu chazal kol shemaisa merubim chokmaso leilan she'anafav mu'atim v'shorashav merubim. Beautiful mashal in Pirkei Avos, a person whose deeds are great, even if their wisdom is scant, they're like a tree who don't have a lot of branches, but they have very deep roots. Shekol haruchos shebe'olam ein mazizun oiso mimkoimo v'hashomea yishma. So if you focus on doing the right thing and then incorporating your learning, you'll be like a tree with deep roots. Gradually, you'll have more and more branches and fruits, and you'll be anchored in the emes and in the true ways of hiskarvus, of getting close to God. V'hashomea yishma. So please heed my warning, says the Nefesh HaChaim. This is the way to go. Don't Don't fall off the path and be swayed by the Yetzer or any new movements, or try to what's called Chabzik Melachim, to become an angel and get, oh, I'm doing everything I'll be Kabbalah and with these very highfalutin, kavanas. Don't do that. Just do the Torah and the mitzvahs according to your abilities. Keep the rules. Do the mitzvahs on time. Study Torah according to your ability, and gradually you'll grow and enjoy and also have olam haba and reward according to your deeds. But the main thing is you'll be rooted. You'll be rooted in Torah and mitzvahs in a really good way, that you won't be confused and go off the derech. So Baruch Hashem, we have concluded this section of the Nefesh HaChaim, the Prakim, and next time we get together, Baruch Hashem, we'll be beginning Sha'ar Daled, the Sha'ar of Abbas Torah, of Torah Lishma, and how great is the Torah, how important and central is the Torah in maintaining the universe, and Kol Shekain in our service of Hashem. So that looking forward to that, Bezrat Hashem, and I thank you for being here this evening, and I'll see you next week, Bezrat Hashem.
Yishar Koach.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
you.